And is it Giossi or Giossi? Do you know, Steve?
I think it's Giossi, but to tell you the truth, when I was out there today, and Lucci called him Edwin.
Thanks for the help, Coach.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to another edition of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, I am Peter, and today, yes, we do have Buzz. We'll introduce him in a second, but we have a very special guest. In fact, if you're a fan of soccer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, this may be the most specialist of all guests. He is the Dean of Soccer Journalism in our area. He's the reason we're all really here. We welcome Steve Davis to the podcast today. Hello, Steve.
No, you were talking about the special guest, and I was like, this is great. Who else is on?
Don't do that whole I'm so humble Steve Davis thing. Absorb the compliment and take it like a man.
Very, 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 very kind of you guys. Happy to be on here.
Awesome. And of course, founder and editor of thirddegree.net, our hero. Come in, Buzz.
Hello, Peter. Calling in today from Lyon, France, where I just checked into England's hotel.
And you did so in a very rude manner. No, very American, just very American style. I don't find I don't think there is any level of coincidence that Dan English Crook has taken this podcast off on the heels of the United States offing the English from the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I hadn't looked at it that way. His work conflict was convenient with the loss.
Steve, you're absorbing the Women's World Cup this year, aren't you?
Yeah, even Dan said he was going to have words with me after my tweet yesterday about how it's got to sting. You just know it's got to sting the English. I mean, whether it's men's or women's or a youth international tournament or 4 Americans playing 4 Englishmen out of the park on a Saturday morning in a pickup game. It's got to sting for the Yanks to beat them, right?
Especially on a failed penalty kick conversion. Oh, how English could that possibly be?
Essentially English.
But now we get to turn our knives towards you, Steve Davis, because it's USA versus the Holland, the Dutch.
Sure. Yeah.
Your favorite team in the whole world.
Not necessarily, but it's it's up there. I'm a proud KNVB supporter. A long time ago, I don't know if you or I have ever talked about this, Peter, but how my original sort of soccer love and how I kind of got pulled in was trying to learn the history of this tiny little nation I barely knew anything about, and how they did so well at the 1978 World Cup, and then I found out then they did all this at the 1974 World Cup too, and who are these players and who is this team? And then I got to see Johan Cruyff, and it was on from there.
So I always, you've not told me that story. I have always assumed for some reason that you had some sort of Dutch heritage, but this is just purely a love of the game from a young child's standpoint, admiration kind of stuff. That's
exactly what it is. Now, I like to tell people I've got some Dutch heritage, and my girlfriend will kind of tease me about it, but there's no actual proof of that.
Well,
I'm not doing the DNA test to prove otherwise.
Well, when I see you out at the kick around on Sundays, I can tell everybody you have some Dutch qualities to your game. So that's what made me believe you were actually Dutch.
I'll wear orange this week just for you.
All right. Well, are you gonna root for Holland or the United States on Sunday?
Generally speaking, I mean, I don't really root for anybody, but I kind of sort of make an exception for the national teams, and I do want the national teams to do well, and of course I want the United States to do well, and that's men or women all the time, if only because it gives us more to talk about, but I'm also a little bit of a patriot that way, so of course I want the United States to win.
Yeah, it should be fascinating. I see no reason why the United States shouldn't win this game, other than the fact that they seem to Jill Ellis seems to enjoy letting them absorb way too much pressure of late, and hopefully she won't choose that tactic on Sunday, because I think if all the teams are dangerous going forward, the Dutch were certainly one of the most dangerous in the entire tournament.
I think the United States wins this one 4 out of 5 times, but
this could be the one.
There's always that fifth time.
It absolutely could be. And the men play later on tonight. In fact, we're just recording this a couple of hours before the U.S. takes on Jamaica. It's funny. We've given Greg Berhalter and the men's team a lot of crap about having a difficult time against tiny island nations, but I'll be darned if I didn't see Mexico almost fart that one away against Haiti last night.
Yeah, and I, Buzz, maybe you have more to say about this one. I don't want to dominate this thing, but the message there is that, yes, the United States doesn't look that impressive, but the island nations, they're catching up fast, and I love to see it.
I watched the Haiti-Mexico game, and Haiti did a really nice job of containing, with basically a low block and a counterattack over the top kind of style. They played to their strengths. Mexico really struggled to break them down. They did not have a front line that was looking dangerous much of the game. But then having watched the Mexico-Costa Rica game, I thought either one of those teams would walk off the park against the United States. So you never know which team you're going to get out of Mexico, and you never know what you're going to get out of the United States if they were to advance tonight, and if they even will advance tonight. So this is a work in progress for everybody in this tournament. I think is in a work in progress kind of mode. There's nobody that's like firing on all cylinders right now.
Okay, so speaking of work in progress, we'll move on to the main course of the pod week in and week out. We learned today officially that FC Dallas has sold off Carlos Gruezo, the Ecuadorian holding mid that we have all come to love and adore over the last several years. And boy, was it a tidy bit of business. They bought him, I think I'm saying this correctly, for $1.5 million several years ago, and now have sold him for $4.5 million and can increase up to $6.5 and has a 20% sell-on fee if Osberg, who they sold him to, decides to sell him for even more money. Here's the deal, guys, and I'll let you start, Steve, since you're our special guest. Can somebody please explain to me why I should be excited about selling our best player in the middle of the year once again?
Yeah, look, there is that side of it. Should you be excited? I don't know. I don't know if excited is the right word necessarily, but I think it is sort of fulfilling what this team's philosophy is now. And, look, you talk about selling a player, Peter. This is not a player they just sold for $1 million. That's a big chunk of change there. $4.5 million. Are you kidding me? Even when I saw the figure reported, I thought, wow, is that right?
Yeah.
And it can go higher. It's a record fee for the club. If somebody had said that they sold Mauro Diaz for that amount, or Fabian Castillo, we would have said, okay, that kind of makes sense. But seriously, I mean, if you're in the driver's seat there at this club, and somebody offers you $4.5 million for Carlos Gruezo, are you telling me, Peter, you wouldn't take it? Now, excited? I don't know, but are you telling me you wouldn't take it?
No, I don't, and I totally get the business of this. I just find it to be an odd pothole in the business model of how FC Dallas and many MLS clubs are going to end up running, although it seems to happen to Dallas more often than anybody else, which is you build a team, you get halfway through a season, and suddenly your better player is now going. Now, I also respect and understand that players want to make moves, and there's money to be made, but there's an inverse of this, which is incoming players, equal quality, etc., that I think sometimes there's a portion of the fan base gets frustrated by, because you're selling a really, really good player, arguably maybe the team's best player in this moment in terms of quality and experience, and you don't really have anything to replace him with. And I think that's where, when I kind of I'm being exaggerating by saying exciting, it does make it difficult to be happy about it, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, there's no question that at some point you have to hold on to some of these guys. You can't sell all of them, but one of the things about Gruezo is all the reports, and I was never able to confirm it myself, but the reports that his contract was ending at the end of this season. So this is actually about twice the money I was expecting, given the fact that if they would have just waited 6 months, he would have walked for free. So at some point you have to sell a guy when I've assumed for 1.5 years that Gruezo was on his way out the door as soon as he could. So, you got to get what you can for him when you can, and they've done that. Now, for sure, you can't sell this as how you win MLS Cup without holding on to some of these guys.
No, that's absolutely right. And to your point, Peter, it's not how you win MLS Cup in 2019. Now can you make some kind of argument that it's how you build a team that can win it in years later? And that brings me to selling players in the middle of the season. I sort of wish FC Dallas would adopt a hard line on what I kind of call the Tyler Adams model, where you just kind of tell people we don't sell players in the middle of the season. Now, if you want Paxton Pomykal, yeah, we'll sell him, and then just like Leipzig did with Tyler Adams, you're going to loan him back to us for the rest of the season, and then you get him in January if that's how it works. And I really liked the way the Red Bulls orchestrated that. Now, of course, that's organizations within the same family. So, as far as how it helps you right now. Here's one thing that I kind of want to add to this conversation that Dan Hunt will say, we have opportunities to bring other players in. And he's even mentioned publicly Guillermo Ochoa, from Mexico, and said, that one might sell a few seats for us. And he's obviously a good goalkeeper. But then he says, what does that do to Jesse Gonzalez? What does that do to his minutes? And he says we've had other chances for to bring other players in. He says, but they were looking at a number 10, and he had a conversation with Lucci. What does that do for Paxton Pomykal? What does that do to his minutes? Because here's the thing, Dan really feels this obligation because of the position he's in. He hates what happened with the United States at the World Cup in 2018. He feels partially responsible. And he talked about this back then. You remember, but he's really trying to act on it. He's really taking to heart that when they bring players in, take players out, what does it do for the Americans that we have to develop going forward? So now I bring it back full circle to Carlos Gruezo. Is this going to help them win a championship in 2019? No, it's certainly not. But does it clear the runway for more minutes for Edwin Cerrillo, Brandon Cervania? Certainly, Paxton Pomykal is probably going to get his, but so that gets into the equation, and I think that doesn't get added to the conversation often enough, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, although that's a nice story to hear, and it's an interesting perspective I've never heard from Dan. But then my question is, well, if that's the case, then why go spend a record club amount on Brian Acosta or bother with somebody like a Dresnik? Or bringing in this Edwin Giassi guy. If Dan's really committed to this concept of growing the next generation of American players, one, how does he balance that with his season ticket holder base and trying to fill a stadium week in and week out? Which is, I think, you're going to tell me is part of the reason why he did go out and buy or pay for some of these extra guys. It just seems a little bit unbalanced to me in the thinking. One is very romantic, and I admire it, and the other one is, I don't know if that's getting me where I want this team to go after watching it for 25 years, which is to win a stupid MLS Cup at least once.
Yeah, what I'll say here, then I'll yield the floor to Buzz for a second. I don't know this because I haven't seen the contract. I'm pretty sure Zdeněk Andrade that didn't cost him a thing. I think that was, that's just basically monopoly money, right? So you bring a guy like that in, he's not playing. So when you bring a guy like that, and if you pay for him, yeah, you kind of, now there's some pressure to play him, right? But I don't think they paid anything for him, and he's not playing, so he's not taking minutes from anybody. I don't know this about Edwin Giassi. I suspect it's sort of the same thing, where it's, they're not probably paying a lot of money for him, if anything at all. So it's, and who knows what the contract is. So they're, it's kind of low risk that way, if that makes sense. And then again, if you don't, so a guy like that. Look, you bring Pablo Arunguiz in, or to your point, Brian Acosta. The coaches, they know. We spent money on this player. I'm kind of got some pressure to play him, even if he's not working out, exactly like I want him to right now. But the other low risk guys, they're not taking minutes and they're not taking money. So,
aren't they taking money on Dresnik in particular, $500,000 off the salary cap? I mean,
salary cap is that's fair game in the conversation. Yes.
Yeah. Buzz, any perspective from your standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said in terms of Dan Hunt's perspective, and I don't speak for him by any means, of course, but you and I have talked frequently, Peter, about profit margins and the sustainability of a franchise, and I think we're pretty confident in saying that if FC Dallas makes money, and I don't believe that it does, the MLS side, it's going to be very little if it is making money. The profit for them to this point has been from the academy through the youth setup, not the academy part, but it now is with selling of players. They made a fairly decent chunk, I believe, if I remember correctly, off of Diaz. Now they're making a good chunk off of this guy. This is, from the Hunt family's perspective, this is how they're going to make money, because they're not making it in the stands with ticket sales. So, I can understand how some of this is going to happen. And the other side of the development of the American players mentality, I'm actually excited about that idea. But then I'm a hardcore soccer person, and so the average fan's not going to buy into it. I've actually thought that because of the green card loophole, that we should reduce the amount of internationals we allow in this league, to make it where you need to play more domestics. But I don't know that that's a great selling point. You're not going to, and Don Garber's more interested in putting a good product on the field than he is in developing the American players. So I can see why they don't do that. But it's an interesting question. It's an interesting balance, and we've known for quite some time, I think, that Gruezo was going to go. They have missed the mark on a couple of signings recently, but they've also done decently on a couple of signings recently. I mean, we like Ziegler quite a bit. He looks like a good signing, and and Brisson seems to have worked out. So I'm not super down on their signing capabilities. They have missed, but this is part of the nature of not being the biggest club in the world. You can't keep everybody. They're even the big clubs these days sell people. So we're just going to have to buy in. But to get back to your original question is like, no, there's no way you can sell the average fan that this is how you win titles in 2019, as Steve says. And maybe Edwin Cerrillo in 3 years is just as good as Gruezo is now.
Yeah, I don't buy into the concept that Cervena and Cerrillo are the equal of Gruezo. I just disagree with that. Are they potentially his equal in a few years? Certainly, and maybe their ceiling is higher than Edwin, but I don't see any teams reaching out offering to pay $4.5 million for either one of the homegrowns. I will also add, part of this is that it seems this is a bit of a histrionic argument, which is dating back to the famous summer of 4 years ago, when Fabian Castillo just went AWOL on the team and skipped town, and then the year after that, Mauro Diaz decides he's had enough and he wants to leave, or 2 years, whatever that is. And then some of the just odd, July's just become a problematic window for this team. And I totally respect, to Steve's point, somebody wastes $4.5 million in front of your face. You're about to make a $3 million profit on a player. You do it. I totally get that. But I as a guy who's also a fan of this team, I want to see it succeed in the marketplace and as a business with fans, and have fans interested in this team. And it's this type of thing that I think just makes it difficult year after year. That's all I'm getting at.
No,
yeah, there's no question that's true.
And that's why I think that I really believe they need to develop this idea and get the word out there, get it to players, get it to agents, get it to other teams. We don't sell players in the summer. I think it starts right here, because you're right. There's a history of it, and if they get that out there, and it becomes an easy line. When Mauro Diaz comes to them and says, I got this big offer, it can change my life. You can say, look, when you got here, and for 5 years and 10 years, this has been our philosophy. We don't sell players in the summer.
Yeah.
That way you don't even look like a bad guy. You're just, I'm sorry that we love you, and we want, and if you want to work it out to where you can get loaned back, but we don't sell players in the summer.
Yeah, I think the Hunts, to their credit, have always tried to be player friendly and accommodate guys when they've made requests of wanting to leave, or in Mauro Diaz's case, go make a big payday in the Middle East, or whatever the story is. They've always been very, very accommodating, and they don't get enough credit for that. But when we talk about this July thing and the up and coming kind of rise of the quality and admiration of the FC Dallas player coming out of the academy into the senior team on a global level, you can see this becoming a continuous problem every July, as somebody now wants Paxton Pomacall, or wants Jesse Gonzalez, or Ricardo Pepi, where all these kids that they're hyping and getting and making everybody excited about suddenly become essentially a bag of chips that somebody else wants to buy and eat, and they have to sell them, and it happens in July. And
I had a conversation with Oscar Pereira one time about that very concept, about if and when you're recruiting players and signing players, can you get them to commit to, you won't try and leave in the middle of the summer? Like, if we're going to sign you or bring you in, will you stay for the whole season? Because Oscar got burned by that 2 or 3 years in a row.
We are now on the field dealing with kind of an odd moment in the team. In the last 3 games, we saw them dominate a Toronto team and get a win that felt like a great win. Then they tied a game that felt like a loss, and then they lost the game that probably more like it should have been a tie last weekend in Portland. Buzz, where do you think all of this sits in terms of where the team is starting to settle out as we get into the second half of the season?
Well, a lot of times coaches will talk about this, and I certainly try and look at games this way. When you're analyzing your team and you think about how they're playing, you're trying to think about how guys are doing. A lot of times you have to ignore the actual scoreline and result, because there is sort of a weirdness to soccer where fluke goals can happen and maybe you don't get the result you expect. So you try and look large picture. And as you say, the game against Toronto, it looked really good. Things looked really positive. Particularly the Cerrillo and Cervania combo was feeling pretty good. And then against Vancouver, the same thing. For 80 minutes, it looks really good, And then you go into, and you have a meltdown at the end, but that happens sometimes. Little young team, young kids. And then you go into Portland, which is a really difficult place to play against, and you got your 18-year-old and your 20-year-old midfielder going up against 2 33-year-olds that have 13 to 15 years of pro experience. And they do pretty good. And they have 1 or 2 small moments, that decides the game. So, you don't get the results you want, but if you're Lucci, and he probably even made comments like this, I'm sure, he probably feels pretty good about the direction his team is heading. And certainly, in terms of guys coming back into the fold, when you saw Brian Acosta come into the game, he changed the game for Dallas completely, which is not to say that the person he replaced was playing poorly. It's just that Brian Acosta is in the prime of his career and playing for his country and is a significantly better player at this stage. When you saw Santiago Mascara coming back healthy, he looked much better against Portland than he's looked in a long time. So if you're a coach or you're a reserve that's trying to be analytical, you have to feel relatively positive about the direction things are going and where the team might be headed over the back half of the season. If the guy you bring in is an impactful player, perhaps, then maybe you could take a step and move up in the standings like I kind of expect. So it's not something to be down on just because a couple of results didn't go the way you wanted. If you think about the process of the team and how it's playing and what has been negative, which is finishing and scoring, looks a little better. There's a little couple more balls getting in there, a little more dangerous stuff, particularly second half against Portland. So, not horrible, not great, but not horrible. It's good progress.
Steve, as somebody, obviously you do TV for the team along with Mark or whoever at that particular moment, and also you've covered this team literally since day one. What does it mean to you, or what do you think in your head when you see the team line up with Paxton, Edwin, and Brandon as your starting center midfielders for like literally first flight MLS games?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a pretty new concept, and it just goes back to what we said a minute ago. And we hear lip service at different times to people talking about development of the American player, and it's happening. I mean, this team is absolutely 100% bought into it. And so, first of all, you say, okay, well, that's a team that's not just giving lip service to it. They are doing this thing. We know under Oscar, and I respect Oscar the world, Oscar Pareja. But, I think he always wanted to do a little bit more of that, but then Oscar has his practical side, and he understood that he just couldn't sometimes. And he also, these were his kids, and he didn't want to play Reggie Cannon too early, didn't want to play Paxton Pomykal too early. So he wanted to do more of it, but then there's a side of him that just he couldn't quite get there. Well, they're doing it now, and I think it's a great story. Paxton leads the way in it, but it's not just a story around here. This is a story around Major League Soccer, and I really believe that if you do that thing that you shouldn't do, that none of us should ever do, which is read the comments. If you go through and you look at people and how they regard FC Dallas, and people in Portland or Seattle, they may hate FC Dallas, but there's this grudging respect for what they're doing with when they play as Cerrillo, Cervania, Pomykal, central midfield. There's a real grudging respect there about that, and I don't know. I kind of like that.
It is interesting to be kind of the cool club in the league, which historically it's not been for a long time. And I agree with you. In the comments, you can start to see that there is at the very least, if this club has the respect of the kind of national fan base, it is the recognition that it's the best academy and the achievements the academy have done on a national scale. The other question, Steve, I wanted to ask you about, and Buzz alluded to this a little bit. Talk a little bit about what you think you've seen, because this is the first time in the last couple of games now we've actually seen Servania and Soria on the field at the same time. And I think that is an interesting work in progress, and I'd be interested in hearing your perspectives on what you've seen so far.
So first of all, I'm not really sure that we're going to see that combination, how much more we're going to see it, because I think Brian Acosta is going to be reintroduced into the lineup. So then, and we know Paxton's an automatic starter, so I think it's going to be Acosta alongside either Cerrillo or Servania. So I'm not sure how much we're going to see that for now anyway. But yeah, look, it's great to watch those two play together. And I talked to Brendan Servania a little bit this morning and asked about a difference of playing with Acosta and Cerrillo, and he kind of went into the weeds a little bit about how he knows one is going and how he's the double pivot works with between the two of them, and maybe you and I and Buzz can sit there and really nerd out over that conversation at some point, and because he really did kind of go into a little bit more depth about how that central midfield functions, and that was really cool. So even that, I mean, you sit there and you talk to a guy. Now he's at the old age of 20, but I've had some conversations like that with Edwin Cerrillo before, and to sit there and talk tactics about a pro soccer game with an 18 or a 19-year-old, and I've talked to Paxton, and Paxton's very serious, by the way. I've tried to joke before with kind of introducing myself into the conversation with Paxton, just by saying something kind of glib or just. And he just kind of looks at you like, I'm here
he
for
is
soccer
so serious for a 19-year-old kid.
He is dug, but I mean that in the best way, because he wants to do his media due diligence, and then he wants to go watch video, or he wants to go practice more, run, or do whatever, or go watch game film. And it's because he wants to improve, and he is dug in that way. So it's just neat talking to those all three of those guys, and understanding that watching them grow, and talking to Edwin Cerrillo, and just looking at a kid, man. He's a kid. They had a graduation ceremony for him the other day, and yet there he is, out there playing against Diego Chara, learning the lessons.
Yeah, it is tough every once in a while to have the realization that essentially almost half the starting team are young enough to be your kid, right? That hurts a little bit, doesn't it, Steve?
It hurts more than a little bit, my man.
I think all of us, feel that pain.
All right, so I'll ask both you guys this. I'll let Buzz, you start off. Where are we on Ryan Hollingshead and his season so far? He's been asked to do so many things, yet I don't think it's unfair to say his performances week in and week out have been a little bit of hit and miss here and there.
Well, for me, Ryan Hollingshead is the exact kind of veteran, journeyman squad player that you want on a team in Major League Soccer. He can play multiple positions. He's a phenomenal leader in the locker room and on the field. Coach can rely on him almost as a fourth coach, if you will, and Lucci does do that. No, he's not going to get any better than he already is. No, he's not going to win games for you on a consistent basis. But when you got an MLS team that's going to have call-ups, that's going to have injuries, having a guy that can play multiple positions, who doesn't make a ton of money, and is happy to be here and works hard and is a great dude and a great leader, those are all fantastic things to have. And I actually think that they should be looking to extend his contract, as long as they can for 3 or 4 years, and with a little bit more money, but not much. He is what he is. Now, do we want to replace him as a starter? Probably. I'm sure the idea is that Johnny Nelson's going to replace him at some point as a left back. But in terms of having him on the team, but I do agree with you 100% that his performances are a little up and down. His defense is a little bit of a liability from time to time. He does make some mistakes. He does get caught with the ball under his feet occasionally, but he still gives you a verticality on the left side that you're not getting from Brisson, certainly at this point on the right. When you have Cannon there, it's much more balanced. It works a lot better. So, good guy to have around. Not going to build a squad around him. He's not the answer by any means.
Your turn, Steve.
I think hit or miss is a really good way to describe his performances. I do wonder if he's going to get a little bit of the Tesho Akindele syndrome, where he's not really allowed to develop at one position.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I had a conversation with Ryan, and he said, I hope I get a good run of games at fullback, because I think I can make that work. And he was getting that, but then because he's Ryan and because they needed it. Now he's playing left wing, but now he's playing right wing. Now he's
holding
playing
mid.
Yeah. Which is, there's a real value to that. On the other hand, it comes at a price, doesn't it? Because you don't really, get locked into that one position and get the rhythm going. And excuse me, guys. And for me, Ryan has 2 or 3 times a game where he just gets sloppy with the ball, and I think there's another level there that he can reach if he can just kind of chisel that out of his game. Couple of little passes where he gets a little lazy, and then it gets taken. Now they're running down the other way, and he's chasing. You take that though, and you balance it out with how many times you see 75 minutes plus. Your left fullback is the guy now being the added runner in the penalty area, getting on the end of things, almost getting on the end of things. We've seen 2 or 3 times this year at the end of the game where he's very close. He was the other night. He was, as I recall, up in Philadelphia. He had a great shot there. So 75th minute, your left fullback, he's got the legs to be another runner in the penalty area. You just don't get that with very many guys. So you get a lot of good and you get some bad.
Yeah, that's why we paid you all this money to appear on the pod, Steve, because your Tesho Ekindele syndrome analogy is spot on. I couldn't agree with you more. That really is a good one. The other question that the other thing I just found amazing the other night, and also interesting at the same time, was late in the game when Dallas is pushing for a tying goal in Portland against Portland. They take off a player, but it's not Jesus Ferreira they take off. It is somebody else, and they stick on Ricardo Pepi, 16 years old, trying to go out and win a game. I find something really very cool about that, and at the same time a little bit frightening from a fan standpoint. As a guy calling the game at that time, what do you so far think about Pepi? We already know Buzz is driving the hype train on it, but what is your take on the whole Ricardo Pepi phenomenon so far, Steve?
Well, as far as putting him in that game, if you look at some of the other options that maybe he had Luigi had on the bench, or maybe the options that he could have, put in the 18. I ask you, I just put the question to you. Do you think that Cobra, Zdeněk Andrazic, would have had a better chance to come in?
No.
So there you go. So in a way, it's there's a project and youth and all this, and in a way, it's just a practical decision. Like, okay, if I have to bring in a striker in the 85th minute, an extra striker, who do I want it to be? Do I want it to be Ricardo Pepi, or do I want it to be Zdeněk Andrazic? And I think he just made the decision that I have a better chance of getting that goal from somebody that I put in the 85th minute with Ricardo Pepi.
And just to make your point even more clear, the one guy that almost tied the game for him wasn't any of those guys. It was almost Ryan Hollingshead.
That's right. Right. And Jesus Ferreira at some point in there it was a little bit earlier, but he had a brilliant chance.
Yeah. Okay. And to be fair, because I am famous for giving a lot of criticism towards Andrazic and Christian Coleman and Dominic Badji for missing opportunities like that. The only reason why Jesus didn't get it as much is because Jesus has actually scored several goals. But that is a goal that kid has got to finish in a game like this for him to really take it to the next level. That was really the key opportunity that separates that type of striker from some of the other guys that we're seeing in the league that are considered to be kind of the gold standard.
Yeah, there's no question that, he's an 18-year-old kid, so we cut him a lot of slack. He has produced a little bit, but if you want to be a top flight 9, you have to convert that goal. Brian Martinez is not missing that. It's a goal that has to be scored because when you're on the road at Portland, those moments only come once or twice a game, and it's got to be converted. And Jesus outside of that moment had a great game. It's just that moment right there makes you go, woo! You got to finish those, kid.
I will say this: the goalkeeper for Portland did a really good job of getting out quick. It was Steve Clark. Got out very quick on him, and I think the mistake he made was seeing that the goalkeeper coming out and then thinking he had to do something kind of special. And I think in the future, 19, 20-year-old Jesus Ferreira just takes that extra half a second, not even that, a quarter of a second, sees where the goalkeeper is, and then knows there's still a space. I don't have to hurry the shot that much. I still have a little bit of time here. And he puts that ball right over Steve Clark's right shoulder. In this case, I think he hurried it just a little bit. He saw the goalkeeper coming out. He saw the angle getting narrowed. that's just the inexperience. I think Jesus Ferreira's got it in him to learn from that, and I really think next year at this time, that exact same scenario, I think that ball is in the net. I think.
The other real quick comment, because we don't get to talk to you very much, Steve, is it dawned on me the other day, actually, I thought about this today when I was thinking about Gruezo and some of the other players that this team has brought in and then sold on. The one thing that I don't think the team ever has gotten enough real credit for is the story of Michael Barrios, who I'm not certain we should all just agree upon may end up being the single best kind of low risk, high reward acquisition in terms of a foreign player being brought in this club's history. Because that guy he's tiny, he's little, but he's kind of a junkyard dog, and he just consistently puts in effort and performances week after week. Doesn't always score, doesn't always make the assist, but I think he's a guy that has clearly gotten a lot better in his game in the time he's been here.
He has, for sure. He is really close to being in the 30-30 club, 30 goals, 30 assists for FC Dallas. There are, let's see, Buzz, you might have to help me out here. I know Jason Kreis is there. There's one more. And I'm trying to remember I guess is it Oscar? No, is it Kenny Cooper? There's one of the guy with 30 goals, 30.
Is it Ted Eck?
It could be David Ferreira. I don't think so, but let's mark you down for that answer for now. Anyway, but to your point, 30 goals, 30 assists. Look, let's be honest here. You're going to hit the way they were signing guys for a while there. For every Michael Barrios, there was 3 Andres Escobar, David Teixeira, Jetterson,
Eric.
Which one? Who?
Exactly.
In
fact, I think one of their names was which one? Who? I think that's actually one of the guys' names.
He was, yeah. I believe he stuck around for almost a year and a half. Yeah.
Almost, yes.
Yeah. So yeah. But the thing is, remember how close Barrios came to us, kind of writing him off, and then there was that Open Cup game they played over TCU, and he had a couple of goals in that one, and from there, he got the confidence, and he's been. You're absolutely right. He's just been maybe one of the most consistent guys. Since then, he's still, his decisions in the final third are still for me about 70%, and his final ball is still about 70%. In terms of providing that final ball. The thing is, he works so hard to get into those positions, and he gets into the positions, he gets by people, that he provides enough opportunity that if he makes bad decisions 30% of the time, if he provides a final bad ball 30% of the time, it's okay, because he's doing enough work to the volume of work over there is sufficient that he's still going to have the production.
Speaking of Barrios, the acquisition this week that the club announced, Edwin Giassi, or Giassi, or as Buzz has said, Lucci refers to him as Edwin, who is Steve, you'll like this. He's Dutch, but of Ghanaian heritage, but he was born in the Netherlands and help me out this. He's being brought over on loan from the club that Nedyalkov also came from, Buzz?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's correct. Yeah, same club as Nedyalkov.
So he looks like he's a left-footed player, but a right winger by trade. So, Buzz, or Steve, whoever wants to have any sense of where this guy fits into the team, maybe he is the next Michael Barrios.
I think that's the idea. Since Castillo left, they've been missing a verticality sort of winger to balance Michael Barrios on the other side. And let's be fair, everyone that's played left wing this season has not particularly grabbed that job and held on to it. So, and even if you want to, and over the back half of the season, Barrios needs some time off too. They're pounding that guy into the ground. So I think the idea is that this guy hopefully can balance some of that equation and make the team a little more level. Maybe he can grab that left wing spot. Maybe Santiago Mascari comes back and grabs that spot. We'll see. But we've been talking about left wing being a position of need, whether it was going to be a signing, whether it was going to be somebody stepping up, one or the other. Somebody's got to do something, because what they're doing right now is not working on that sideline.
Yeah, I do think that he was brought in to be a left winger. I think the idea is to move Dominic Baji back into the central striker position, and wherever he falls in the rotation in there, which creates even more of a logjam. They got 5 strikers now for a system that uses 1 striker. So you can kind of start reading the tea leaves on some of the guys that where and what might happen there. But I'm pretty sure he's brought in to be a left winger. And man, Buzz, you're right. I mean, you look at that position. When's the last time they had a really good left winger? Is it a Dutch guy? Dave Vandenberg or maybe Brett Shea. Well, no, I take it back. Fabian Castillo, of course.
Castillo, yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, you were kind when you said nobody has really grabbed that position because Santiago Mosquera, his production just ain't there this year, man. It's he's got sitting on no goals, 1 assist. They tried Pablo Aranguiz as that inverted left winger. It didn't work out. They got two. They drafted 2 guys last year, Francis Atuahene and Emma Tomasi, and for all the potential they haven't gotten there yet. And now Dominic Baji was put there, but to me that always looked like a stopgap. And I think he provides some verticality when teams play a little higher line. When teams sit back a little bit, he can't give you that verticality, and then he becomes a guy who's a good second runner in the box, and he's pretty good at it. Getting inside from those positions, and when Barrios is crossing, but you certainly lose something with that. And by the way, that works a little better if Ryan Hollingshead is shooting up and down the left wing, but that doesn't always happen because Ryan's not always a left back. So yeah, I'm pretty certain he is being brought in as a left winger. Move Dominic Baji back to the striker position, and then let the depth chart, fill out where it may there.
Can anybody provide a scouting report on Edwin Giassi? Because if there is a frustration with Dallas's tendency to pick up no-name guys, it also makes it really difficult to sound smart on the radio or on a podcast about the guy they brought in.
Over to you, Buzz.
Yeah. From what the little I've read and the little bit of video I saw, YouTube I saw.
Oh, no, not the YouTube video.
Yeah,
no.
Well, I can't fly to where Bulgaria and scout him. Sorry. So he has played a lot on the right wing and then cut inside on the left foot. He is a lefty. If I read that, hopefully I read the right articles. He apparently is a lefty. So he likes to do that cut in from the opposite side. In Dallas's case, they'll probably use him more as a pure lefty, but we've also seen Michael Barrios and whoever flip-flop wings all the time, and Barrios actually has a lot of production from the left side. So I'm quite sure that that's going to continue because Lucci really likes both the end run from Barrios and something they've tried to get Barrios to do and that they asked their outside backs to do, which is that cut-in run, that angled run into the hole behind the striker. So, hopefully he's going to have that components to his game on whichever side they use him on. So he is a vertical kind of player. He's taller than Barrios. He's 6'1" on paper. We'll see how big he is in real life. But, some of the attributes are the right kind of attributes for what they're looking for. And he's exactly, of course, the kind of FC Dallas signing we've all come to love and know. So, this is exactly what we expect. It's exactly what we're always going to get. And we're crossing our fingers that he's going to solve this other wing problem that they have. Because certainly Baji last game was horrible, and I don't expect him to start the next one.
All right, so that leads us into kind of wrapping this thing up, which is Dallas has their now traditional July 4th game tomorrow. Wayne Rooney and 10 other guys show up. They're called DC United, and
you just heard Lucho Acosta's feelings.
Oh, that's true. Boy, that's true because those two guys together have 15 goals this season, which is a lot. The question I was going to ask, and that's a very fair point. I was very unfair to Mr. Acosta there. I apologize publicly to him. Is there any chance that we would see Giassi tomorrow, or is this one of those deals where it's going to be a few weeks?
He can't play until the window opens. Yeah.
When is the window officially? I thought it was July 1st.
July 9th.
Yeah, 9th. Yep.
See,
and I can also tell you that he has. I don't know if he's doing it at this very moment. But today he has been sitting at the embassy, I assume I don't know which embassy, whether it's in Ghana or in Amsterdam. He's sitting at an embassy waiting to have that interview that you Buzz, you and I.
P1 visa.
For the whole visa process where you literally go and sit and wait for your interview. And you might be there a day, you might be sitting there 2 days. We've heard this story, through the years. But so that process is underway. So, when we see him even in North Texas, it could be anywhere from, I'm just guessing here, 3 or 4 days to a couple of weeks now.
And
true. Sorry to interrupt, but consider true that this year they've already had visa problems with 3 or 4 other people. So, God forbid, you don't know. you might have a visa problem with this guy too, and it could be months for all we know.
Including their trainer that specializes in hamstrings.
Right.
Yes. I don't mean to derail here, but I just thought about this. So this guy's going to come in, and I do wonder under Lucci if Oscar's previous practice of giving new incoming guys a lot of time to acclimatize to playing in this league. Mauro Diaz, Ronguez, there were a lot of guys that came in that everybody was very excited about. It always seemed to take so long before we actually saw them actually out on the field. Steve, do you have any sense that might change under Lucci?
Just a total guess here. It might actually take a little longer because I think with the press and the way Lucci wants to press, I think, in fact, I can tell you, Lucci will tell you that it doesn't take my academy guys long at all because they've been doing it
forever, right? Yeah,
right. But he said, but with the other guys, it takes them a little bit to figure it out because look, you guys know enough about the game. If you want to press that way, if one guy isn't on board or if one guy is just a little slower of thought than everybody else, man, the whole thing breaks down because now you got two guys pressing and one guy that's just kind of off,
goofing off
like a kid, picking flowers out in left field, during the game. So it breaks down. So I think with the press and the triggers and when he wants to drop into mid block, when you want to drop into low block, and what are the cues there? It might even take a little bit longer, but we'll see. I don't know.
Interesting. All right. So how are we feeling about how the team lines up, Buzz, against Wayne Rooney and 10 guys? Or I'm sorry, Wayne Rooney, Mr. Acosta, and 9 other guys?
Well, as I already mentioned, I think Baji, after last game, will be not starting. I'm anticipating Santiago Mosquera getting that opportunity. He looked really good when he came in, and Baji did not look good at all. Obviously, I think Brian Acosta being back and the way he played and the way he changed the game when he came in, Brian Acosta's in there, which leaves you a coin flip of whether you like the defensive-minded straight 6 Cerrillo or whether you like Cervania in there with him as more of a double pivot and giving you sort of that dual 6-8 hybrid look that we've seen a little bit of. Which way Lucci goes, I don't know. Because of Acosta, you might see like the 6 first Cerrillo. Maybe Steve can jump in on this in just a second. And until Cannon comes back, I think we're stuck with the defensive first right back Brisson. I don't think, even with Acosta back, I don't think Lucci's ready to go with Reynolds for a start at that right back spot. And with Johnny Nelson still out, you can't go Nelson left, Hollingshead right either. So Ziegler, Hedges, Gonzalez, the rest of it is pretty much standard.
Steve, now that he's been back a week or so actually playing, do you have any sense of where you think Paxton's game is and how the rest of the season's going to roll out with him? He's obviously got a lot of hours on his body. They're asking a lot of him. Do you think it accelerates from here? It settles out? Where do you think it goes?
I think knowing Paxton a little bit, I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's got, as long as he can keep from getting beat up, as long as he doesn't have to play Diego Chara too often, I think he's fine. I think he's a guy who will understand different situations as they come up. In other words, he'll kind of understand the game that he's in. And I don't think he had a particularly great game against Portland. I don't think he had a bad game. I think it's just, he's got 2 inexperienced midfielders behind him. And I think once Brian Acosta gets in, and with midfielders, it's not just getting the ball. It's where are you getting the ball and when are you getting the ball? Are you getting it in the right moments? And I think Acosta can get Paxton the ball, in some better places and maybe a little quicker in some areas. And then the change just kind of goes on down. And I think Paxton is really good about getting his wingers, getting Michael Barrios or whoever's on the left side, getting them the ball in better positions and getting it to them a little quicker. Driving inside, draws a defender, moves the ball outside, or has a combination with Jesus, but he breaks down defenses that way. So I don't see any problem with him playing. I don't see him hitting any walls necessarily. I think he's got enough of a head on his shoulders that he's going to go to the All-Star game, and I don't think it's going to affect him in any way. It's all just speculation, guys, but I think he's going to be just fine.
All right, so one last question before we wrap this up, which is related to this, and Paxton in particular. This team was really motoring its best when the midfield 3 was Gruezo, Acosta, and Paxton. Now that Carlos is out, I'll start with you, Steve. Do you have a sense of who between Cervania and Cerrillo will take over that position, and whoever it is, how much do you think we'll notice a difference in the overall team performance without Carlos back there?
Carlos is an experienced player. I think you're going to miss him a little bit. My guess, guys, is that we're going to see a little bit of both. I think we're going to see Cervania in some different places. He's just a little bit more attack-minded. I think we're going to see Cerrillo in some places. Maybe at home, it could be as simple as that. You know, at home it's Cervania, on the road it's Cerrillo. But I haven't really had that conversation with Lucci, so I'm really just kind of speculating there.
Yeah, Cerrillo is the more straight swap for Gruezo, the defensive-minded, holding six, the crunching six, the guy that's going to be in there. Obviously, there'll be some growing pains where he'll make some 18-year-old mistakes from time to time. But if you're talking the most similarities to the way they're performing before, the answer is Cerrillo. And one thing that'll impact Paxton, of course, is the October Olympic qualifying for the U.S., the U23 Olympic qualifying. And if there's any warm-up camps or warm-up friendlies for that team prior to that, that certainly could cause a little bit of more stress in terms of Paxton's availability down the stretch. And that's also true of, hypothetically, Cervania, Cerrillo, and even Jesus Ferreira might theoretically, and Reggie Cannon too, could be in the mix for the U23 team. We haven't seen any selections on that yet, but that's the next big roster stress that this team's going to have as that team starts to come together.
All right, so tomorrow night, July 4th at 8 p.m. at Toyota Stadium, it's the always favorite fireworks display afterwards. It should be a nice crowd tomorrow night, and an exciting game because a big star like Wayne Rooney's coming to town, and those are always fun games to watch. Man, Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time to chime in and help out on the podcast day. I hope you'll come back and do it again sometime.
You know, I'm always happy to talk soccer with you boys. It's what I love doing. And I'm sorry about the internet issues. I'm gonna just sit over here and just think about what I've done a little bit. Okay.
Well, I just had an epiphany that I'm hoping that the first half that we recorded with you before we had to dial you back in, I still have that audio. Otherwise, we've got a whole other problem we're going to have to figure out. But you know what? We'll deal with that problem. We'll cross that bridge when I get to it as the editor of the show. Okay,
you
Buzz,
just let me know.
Okay, excellent. All right, Go USA. Buzz, thank you very much. And thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We will speak to you next time on another edition of Third Degree, the podcast. Thanks, Steve.